Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 1st May 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China's manufacturing sector experienced a slowdown as factory activity contracted to a 16-month low in April, influenced by prevailing trade tariffs. Despite this, Alibaba's Q3 AI model family received recognition for closing the technological gap with the United States, even outperforming Meta's Llama community. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang asserted that China is not lagging in AI, a statement that contrasted with NVIDIA's subsequent accusation that Anthropic exaggerated in their defense of U.S. AI chip restrictions on China, as President Trump considered updating these restrictions. Certification delays plague the C919 aircraft in Europe, with regulators projecting a 3 to 6 year timeline, possibly delaying inspection until 2025. Corruption allegations targeted a prominent figure at China's securities body, with the vice chairman of China's securities regulator becoming a target. HackX, however, reported its best quarter ever, fueled by China's DeepSeek moment, which boosted IPOs and market re-rating. Simultaneously, Chinese online retailers curtailed its spending on Facebook and Instagram in response to President Trump's trade policy. Suez, with backing from BlackRock, engaged HSBC to assess its China assets, potentially valuing the China water business at over $1 billion. Turning to the United States, the Trump administration's trade policies continued to shape international commerce. The administration terminated a duty-free exemption on low-value imports from China, impacting both buyers and sellers. President Trump labeled China the chief ripper offer on trade and voiced no concerns regarding potential empty store shelves as a consequence of the trade war. The U.S. reportedly initiated discussions with China for trade talks, influencing the bond market. Following China's strong retaliation against Washington's record-high tariffs, other countries have favored a softer approach. Trump was urged to redirect USAID funds to counter global influence of China and Russia. Global shares saw gains during a quiet May day, while US futures also climbed. Gold demand is projected to stay high, reaching a 9-year peak due to uncertainties around US assets and tariff policies. The U.S.-China trade war continues to affect everyday people and raises worries about limiting China's ambitions to keep American dominance. Airbus's CEO announced that the company won't cover tariffs on planes imported by US airlines, which is affecting component flows and causing a 5% year-to-date drop in the company's stock. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has called on President Trump to ease rules on AI chip exports to help US technology expand globally. He also acknowledged China's growing tech strength, particularly concerning Huawei. Foreign crypto firms, like Tether under its CEO, are increasing their U.S. presence despite past regulatory issues. Turning to Australia, shares initially fell following an April rally, but then rose for a 6th straight day, boosted by tech and real estate gains, although mining and energy stocks declined. Later, Australian shares edged lower as tariffs impacted China. Woolworths reported higher third-quarter sales, driven by price cuts that increased volumes, and the company will focus on own-brand offers as living costs weigh on consumers. WiserTech revealed its involvement in US cloud firm Etwopen's strategic review. Horizon provided an update on an RCF block trade to Australian funds. In the United States, the Secretary of State pledged cooperation with India in fighting terrorism. At the UN, the U.S. declared that ending the Russian invasion is the responsibility of both Moscow and Kiev. Advisory firms are advising Hong Kong family offices to decrease their U.S. asset holdings and explore investments in Japan and the UAE to improve risk-return ratios. India's stock market surged through April, driven by strong financial stocks and significant foreign investment, making it Asia's top equity market. Banking and FMCG sectors led this growth, offsetting tensions with Pakistan, although analysts predict potential pullbacks in May. The market was closed for Maharashtra Day. Despite this financial upswing, high gold prices during Akshaya Tritiya reduced consumer purchases, favoring smaller gold and silver items. Strong rupee value drove up Indian rice prices despite weak Asian demand. Buybacks aims for double-digit growth through expansion. AGL Engineering secured a 146 crore order from Indian Railways for the Kavach system, yet shares declined 2.49% to Yoga 49% to Yoga 445, following a significant 5-year rise. Coquio is expanding its Indian presence by acquiring Knee Office India, and Adobe plans to boost India's creator economy at the WHAM Summit. Further developments show India adding 2.1 crore new investors in FY26 per NNSA report. South Indian Bank hosted the inaugural National Co-Lending Summit, Seed Decide. The White House is reportedly accelerating efforts to finalize a trade deal with India, amid investor skepticism about trade agreement implementation. Russia's economic outlook is shadowed by geopolitical instability and fluctuating oil prices. The nation has tripled its 2025 deficit forecast due to concerns about low oil prices. Nevertheless, Russia anticipates a 1.8% economic expansion in 2025, even under a trade war scenario. Gazprom reported a $14.80 billion profit for 2024, marking a return to annual profitability. Mellon is allocating $50 billion to a project aimed at achieving dominance in the global gaming market. Russia is allocating $21 million daily for enlistment bonuses to attract new military volunteers. Former President Dmitry Medvedev asserted that a minerals agreement between Ukraine and the U.S. indicates that Trump has compelled Kyiv to finance U.S. assistance. Russia has also predicted that Ukraine will soon disappear following the mineral deal. Moscow is hesitant to grant refuge to 300 Ukrainian turncoats seeking asylum in Russia. According to officials appointed by Moscow, an attack in a Russian-occupied area of Ukraine caused 7 deaths. President Putin has expressed his belief that Russia and Europe will eventually normalize relations. Domestically, the Communist Party in Russia is advocating for the renaming of Volgograd to Stalingrad. Furthermore, Sezeg Jigitova, a Beryat illustrator, is urging acknowledgement of Russia's colonial violence. Amidst the conflict with Russia, Ukraine's minerals agreement with the U.S. has been criticized by Moscow, with Medvedev claiming that Trump forced Kyiv to pay for U.S. aid. Russia has predicted that Ukraine will soon disappear. Moscow is reluctant to accept 300 Ukrainian turncoats seeking refuge in Russia. Officials appointed by Moscow reported that an attack in a Russian-occupied region of Ukraine resulted in 7 deaths. In the United States, a minerals deal between Ukraine and the U.S., reportedly orchestrated by former President Trump, has drawn criticism from Russia, with Medvedev stating that Trump forced Kyiv to pay for U.S. aid. Finally, North Korea and Russia may both benefit from disclosing troop deployments. Saudi Arabia's financial sector is experiencing notable expansion and innovation. Mellon has established a regional headquarters in the kingdom, following the acquisition of license demonstrating a commitment to the Saudi market. The Saudi Central Bank, SAMA, has authorized Naila Finance Company to conduct microfinance operations. Furthermore, the Saudi startup Arad has secured $16 billion in funding to facilitate SM financing across Saudi Arabia and the broader GCC region. Within the Saudi securities landscape, firms are advocating for greater clarity concerning the operational infrastructure, proposing an educational initiative to foster comprehension and advancement within the industry. Saudi Arabia's GDP grew by 2.7% in the first quarter. The Saudi Public Investment Fund, PIF, BSF, and DP World are collectively driving a surge in Gulf sukuk sales. In other economic developments, Saudi Arabia has released a tax update. The kingdom has indicated its capacity to withstand an extended period of depressed oil prices as it adjusts its oil strategy, contributing to a substantial decrease in monthly oil prices. Trade tensions are expected to potentially impact expatriate employment within Saudi Arabia. A Gulf enterprise associated with Jim Bolsili is collaborating with a Saudi developer to create upscale resorts in the Middle East. In cultural news, Hans Zimmer has created a new musical score for Saudi Arabia's national identity. Turning to Syria, the nation has conveyed its appreciation to both Saudi Arabia and Qatar for settling its outstanding debts with the World Bank. South Africa. South Africa's Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, is expected to remain in his position despite ongoing budget challenges. Anglo-American shareholders have approved the demerger of their South African platinum unit, Amplats. The rental market is experiencing a surge as young South Africans increasingly favor renting over buying property. Chery is preparing to launch its new Lepus brand in South Africa, introducing stylish SUVs targeting a trendy consumer base. The career of Johan van Zyl, who transitioned from university rector to a prominent CEO, exemplifies South African leadership. Middle East and North Africa. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has indicated that countries in the Middle East and North Africa are facing economic growth challenges primarily due to tariff measures and decreased oil prices. Japanese and Australian markets rose, following volatile trading on Wall Street, with the Bank of Japan maintaining interest rates at 0.5%. Japanese trading house Soars counts the cost of us tariffs Japan's. Share buybacks nearly triple as governance push gains. Pace Japan's Nikkei climbs as Boyd signals longer road to rate hikes Trump's. Unprecedented tariffs lead Japan to slash its growth forecast. Japan's top brokerages warn on Trump uncertainty after jump in profits and urge to straddle. The U.S. and Ukraine signed a minerals deal, long desired by President Trump, more than 3 years after Russia's full-scale invasion. The U.S. economy contracted in the first quarter, coinciding with the signing of a minerals deal between Ukraine and the U.S. Ukraine says it's poised to sign a key mineral resources deal with the U.S. on Wednesday. U.S. and Ukraine sign economic deal after Trump presses Kyiv to pay back us for help in repelling Russia-Ukraine war. Latest, Kremlin says Russia ready for mass mobilization. South Korea's top court questioned the eligibility of frontrunner Lee Jae-myung to run for president, and the prime minister and finance minister resigned. South Korea approves bigger extra budget of $9.70 billion. As economy falters, South Korea's acting president resigns ahead of launch of campaign. South Korea designates Yoshio as industrial crisis response area to support petrochemical firms franchise. Emina faces challenge. A slowdown in commerce between the United States and China, stemming from increasing tariffs, was apparent in a report on manufacturing activity in April. Many international students are reconsidering studying in the U.S. due to visa revocations, potentially impacting the U.S. economy, which benefited from $44 billion in contributions from these students last year. United States, Canada, and Australia, the countries with the highest stock market participation rates. Fund Society. Canada faces potentially slower economic growth as financial conditions weaken, contributing to a dip in the S&P TX composite by 0.3%. Investors are eyeing opportunities in Canadian artificial intelligence stocks, while others explore value investments amidst market corrections. Corby Spirit and Wine emerges as one of the potentially undervalued stocks in the Canadian market. Spain's competition watchdog, CNMC, has given the green light to BEBFA's bid to take over Banco Sabadell, a move still pending government authorization. Blackouts affecting both Spain and Portugal underscore the critical need for modernization of their power infrastructure. Saudi Arabia is poised to transform its financial landscape with regulatory reforms aimed at fostering a robust asset-backed securities (ABS) market, potentially exceeding the size of Spain's. China's commitment to technological advancement was on display as President Xi Jinping toured the Shanghai AI Incubator, SMC, signaling the nation's strategic emphasis on artificial intelligence. European CEOs are responding to U.S. tariffs by raising prices for American consumers. These CEOs are also cutting costs and diversifying supply chains away from China. Interest is growing in a new pan-European trading venue. European shares are rising due to optimism about tariff resolutions and strong economic data. Anticipating potential market shifts, strategist Ray Choudhury suggests Asian equities may outpace others if the U.S. faces a recession. Mirroring as futures, Asian shares saw gains in recent trading despite limited holiday activity. Overall, Asian stocks experienced a general upswing, energized by positive sentiment from Wall Street. The Taiwan dollar spearheaded a monthly rally among Asian currencies. Qatar Investment Corporation, Kuwait, is strategically planning to expand its investments into Saudi Arabia. Separately, a company linked to Donald Trump has entered into a deal to manage a Qatari golf resort, signaling a continued effort to engage in foreign business ventures. In other news, L3 Harris Technologies has secured a contract to modify a used Boeing 747, previously owned by Qatar. This modification is speculated to be related to the ongoing delays in the development of the new Air Force One, suggesting this plane could potentially serve as a potential replacement. Germany's incoming centrist coalition government has appointed Lars Klingbeil of the Social Democratic Party as the next vice-chancellor and finance minister, following the Trump administration's decision to grant auto tariff relief. Germany's stock markets rebounded from losses incurred in April. Shifting focus to Finland, TikTok intends to build a €1 billion data center, drawn to the country's cooler climate, which reduces energy consumption. An explosion struck an Iranian port at a facility linked to a charitable foundation overseen by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's office. In the United States, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is anticipated to resign after a signal controversy involving defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sharing military strike details related to Yemen. Taiwan has revised its 2025 full-year GDP forecast upward, driven by robust demand within the technology sector. India is seeing Taiwan-based Inventec Corporation entering its market through a collaborative venture with Dixon. Hong Kong is becoming a hub for Malaysian professionals who have relocated to pursue career advancements, and K&L Gates has expanded its corporate group there. Singapore's Herbert Smith Freehills has named a new managing partner for its Singapore operations. Saudi Arabia and Azerbaijan are planning a partnership to export green energy to Europe, as announced by Azerbaijan's Deputy Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Switzerland has seen demonstrations against inequality. The IMF is advising Egypt to exercise caution as it eases interest rates. Korean art is experiencing growing popularity amongst wealthy collectors in Indonesia, bringing increased attention to Seoul. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.